A bank sued a quiet farmer for $62,000, laughed at him in public, froze his land, and sent 3 lawyers to finish it. What they didn't know was that Gerald Marsh had been waiting 23 years for exactly this moment. The call came on a Tuesday, not to Gerald, to the bank's own project manager, a man named Reston, who had spent the last 4 months telling his bosses the pipeline corridor was clear. It was not clear. Reston called the lead attorney at 7:14 in the morning. His voice was not steady. The attorney called Dennis Call at 7:31. Call was the senior vice president of regional development at Meridian Federal Bank. He had 18 employees, 2 company cars, and a corner office with a view of the river. He had never once lost a land dispute. He stood in his kitchen, still in his robe, holding the phone with both hands. A single strip of land, 11 acres, mostly scrub, running along the eastern edge of Millbrook Road, was blocking $47 million in development. One man owned it. One man had always owned it. His name was Gerald Marsh. Rewind 23 years. October 1st, 2001. The Dunmore County annual tax auction was held in the basement of the municipal building on Court Street. Folding tables, fluorescent lights, a coffee pot on a card table near the door that nobody had remembered to turn on. 41 parcels on the list, maybe 30 people in the room, most of them farmers, 2 of them wearing ties. Gerald Marsh was 41 years old. He wore a barn coat with a broken zipper. He drove a truck with 190,000 miles on it. He had a wife named Carol at home and a daughter named Lynn in 3rd grade and a legal pad in his coat pocket, folded in half. Parcel 14C was the 8th lot on the list. The county assessor read it out loud. 11 acres, eastern edge of Millbrook Road, Dunmore Township. No structure, no well on record. Classified as marginal rural. Starting bid, $2,800. 2 people in the room laughed. One of them was Dennis Call. Call was 44 then. Sharper suit than anyone else in the room. He'd come to bid on a different parcel, a 40-acre lot 2 miles north, and he'd brought a woman with a briefcase to take notes. When the assessor read parcel 14C, Call leaned toward her and said something without bothering to lower his voice. "That one's going to a man who doesn't know what he's bidding on." Gerald heard it. He didn't look up. The bidding opened at $2,800. Nobody moved. Gerald raised his hand. $3,100. Call glanced over, a half-second look, the kind you give a dog that wanders into the road. No one countered. The gavel came down. Gerald Marsh walked to the registration table. He signed his name on 3 forms. He was given a stamped receipt, $3,100 for parcel 14C, Dunmore Township, Millbrook Road, 11 acres. He folded the receipt once. Then again, he put it in his coat pocket, behind the legal pad. Call was bidding on his parcel now. $84,000, then $91,000. He got it for $8,500. He smiled at the woman with the briefcase. He did not look at Gerald again. Gerald took a styrofoam cup and poured himself coffee from the pot someone had finally switched on. He stood near the back wall and drank it slowly while the next 7 parcels were called. Then he drove home. Carol was in the kitchen when he came through the door. Lynn was at the table doing homework. "How'd it go?" Carol asked. "Got it," Gerald said. She looked at him. "For how much?" $3,100. She nodded. She didn't ask anything else. That was Carol. She had a way of reading Gerald that required no words. He set the receipt on the counter. He took off the barn coat. He hung it on the hook by the door. Then he sat at the kitchen table with the legal pad and turned to page 4. There was a hand-drawn map on page 4. He had made it himself over 3 visits to the county library, using survey maps from 1958, 1963, and 1971. The lines were careful. The measurements were labeled. He set his finger on the eastern edge of parcel 14C. He held it there for a moment. 11 acres of scrubland. No well, no structure, marginal rural. Worth $3,100 to anyone who looked at what was there. Worth something else entirely to someone who had read what came before it. Gerald had been to the library 6 times before that auction. He had read filings nobody else had bothered to pull. He had found a document that every title search since 1973 had missed because of a single clerical error. a $7 entry filed in the wrong column in 1957. He hadn't told anyone. He hadn't needed to. He folded the legal pad closed, set it on the table, and finished his coffee. Across town, Dennis Call was celebrating an $88,500 purchase with a dinner he expensed to the company. Gerald rinsed his cup, turned off the kitchen light, and went to bed. He was the only person in Dunmore County who understood what had just happened in that basement, and he had no reason to explain it to anyone. Not yet. Before things get a whole lot more interesting, hit subscribe right now, because what Gerald found in that library is the kind of thing banks pay lawyers 6 figures to make sure you never know about. September 1998, 3 years before the auction, a Thursday afternoon. Gerald Marsh sat alone at a microfiche reader on the second floor of the Dunmore County Public Library, and the machine hummed and he turned the dial slowly, and outside it rained. He was not looking for a fortune. He was just reading. That was the part nobody ever understood about Gerald. He didn't walk into the library with a plan. He walked in because the county zoning board had published a notice about Millbrook Road in the local paper, and the notice referenced a 1961 road expansion proposal, and Gerald had never heard of it, so he looked it up. The 1961 proposal was a county road extension, Millbrook Road East, half a mile, running through what had been the old Holloway farm. The county had approved it in March 1961. State funding had been earmarked. Survey stakes had been driven. Then, in November 1963, the federal highway allocation redirected north. The project stopped. But the approval had never been formally dissolved. Gerald wrote that down on his legal pad. One line. 1961 road expansion. Approved, never vacated. He turned the dial again. The Holloway farm had been parceled out through the 1970s. It went to 4 different buyers over 30 years. Not one of them had pulled a title history past 1971. The county had no reason to flag it. The title companies had no reason to look. But Gerald kept reading. He found the 1956 document on a Friday morning, buried in a Water Authority folder that had been cataloged by agency name rather than parcel number. The filing was thin, 2 pages, typed on an old manual machine, signed by the original Holloway landowner and a county water authority clerk. It was a permanent surface access agreement. It granted the water authority, and any successors and any entities the county authorized, perpetual access along the eastern 18 feet of the parcel. The word was right there in the second paragraph. Perpetuity. Gerald wrote the filing number on his legal pad. He copied the clause by hand. Then he sat back and looked at the rain hitting the library window for a long moment. He drove home at 4:30. Carol had the kettle on. Gerald spread the legal pad on the kitchen table. He opened to page 4 where the hand-drawn map wasn't yet fully drawn. He added 2 new lines, thin pencil lines along the eastern edge of the parcel he'd been watching. Carol came over. She looked at the map. She looked at Gerald. "Is it good?" she said. "Yeah," he said. "It's good." She went back to the kettle. She did not ask what it meant. She understood that Gerald would tell her when telling mattered. Over the next 8 months, Gerald drove out to Millbrook Road 14 times. He didn't do anything. He just watched. In April, survey flags appeared on the parcels north of the Holloway land. Orange flags. A crew came on a Tuesday, worked for 3 days, left. In June, a real estate LLC filed acquisition paperwork on 2 of those northern parcels. Gerald found the filing in the county recorder's office on a Wednesday morning. He wrote the LLC name in his notebook. Dunmore Holdings. In August, Dunmore Holdings filed on 2 more parcels, then 3 more in October. Gerald tracked every acquisition in the notebook. Carol had given it to him the previous Christmas. Brown cover, college ruled, his name written on the inside front cover in her handwriting. By the end of 1999, Dunmore Holdings had assembled 280 acres around 3 sides of the old Holloway parcels. Every piece of that land sat north and west of one thing, the eastern 18-foot corridor of Parcel 14C. Gerald drew one last line on his map, a thick line running south from the road grid down through the entire Dunmore Holdings assembly, showing the route that any utility infrastructure, gas, water, electric, fiber, would have to travel to service 280 acres of development. Every line ran through that 18-foot strip, every single one. There was no alternate route. The grade dropped 40 feet on the west side. A protected wetland sat to the north. The county road right-of-way ended 90 feet short of the connection point. Without that corridor, 280 acres was worth almost nothing to a developer. With it, someone was going to spend $47 million. Gerald closed the notebook. He looked at the map one more time. Then he drove to the county assessor's office and asked about the upcoming tax auction schedule. Parcel 14C was on the list. Starting bid, $2,800, $18,000. The agent said it standing on Gerald's front porch like the number would do the work for him. He was young, pressed shirt, clipboard with a leather cover. He had driven out from Crestfield in a white Ford Explorer that still had dealer plates. Gerald looked at the number on the paper. Then he looked past the agent, at the gravel lane running along the edge of the cornfield, at the survey flags that had appeared again last spring. Not interested, Gerald said. The agent blinked. Sir, the assessed value of the parcel is... I know the assessed value. Then you understand this offer is... I understand what the offer is. The agent stood there a moment longer, as if waiting for something. Gerald thanked him for coming. The agent drove away. Carol was in the garden when Gerald came back around the house. How much, she said without looking up. 18. She pulled a weed. That's a lot for scrubland. Not to them, Gerald said. She looked up then. One look. Then she went back to the garden. That was 2007. He mowed the strip every spring and every fall. It took him 40 minutes each time with the push mower. The ground was uneven. There were rocks. Twice he hit buried pipe from the old water authority work, and both times he marked the spot with a stake and noted it in the notebook. He paid the annual tax bill in March every year by check. The amount ranged from $47 to $61 depending on the year. He kept every receipt in a manila envelope in the kitchen drawer beside the stove. Nobody was paying attention to parcel 14C. That was fine. Gerald was. The second offer came in 2011 by phone. A man named Stokes from the county seat. He identified himself as representing a land acquisition trust and said the county had authorized him to offer $34,500 for the parcel. Gerald let him finish. No, thank you, Gerald said. Mr. Marsh, I want to make sure you understand the scope. I understand, Gerald said. Is there anything else? Stokes paused. We may come back with a revised figure. That's fine, Gerald said. You know where to find me. He hung up the phone. Lynn was visiting that weekend. She was 12. She had been watching her father from the kitchen doorway. Who was that? She said. A lawyer, Gerald said. What did he want? The strip. She looked out the window at the land she had walked across 100 times. The land that looked like nothing. Rocks and scrub grass and an old stake here and there. Why does everybody want it? She said. Because it goes somewhere, Gerald said. Lynn nodded like that made sense. She was 12. She would remember the answer for a long time. In 2015, Dennis Call's company had become Meridian Development Group, a subsidiary of Meridian Federal Bank. Gerald found the corporate restructuring notice in the county recorder's filings on a Tuesday morning. He wrote it in the notebook. Dunmore Holdings, Meridian Development Group. Parent, Meridian Federal Bank. He underlined it once. The third offer came in 2017. Not an agent, not a county lawyer. A man in a three-piece suit knocked on Gerald's door on a Wednesday afternoon. He introduced himself as Mr. Freed, counsel for Meridian Development Group. He carried a leather briefcase. He accepted the offer of coffee. He sat at the kitchen table and set a single sheet of paper on it. $210,000. Clean title transfer, Freed said. 30-day close, no contingencies. Gerald poured his own coffee. He sat across from Freed. He looked at the number. No, he said. Freed set down his cup. Mr. Marsh, I want you to understand that this project represents a significant regional investment. The timeline. I understand timelines, Gerald said. Then you understand that holding a position like this creates legal exposure. There are questions of abandonment, of access rights. Are you saying you'll sue me? Gerald said. Freed did not answer right away. I'm saying the company has options, he said. So do I, Gerald said. Freed finished his coffee. He thanked Gerald for his time. He put the sheet of paper back in his briefcase and left. Carol was in the doorway. He's going to sue us, she said. Yes, Gerald said. She looked at him. Are we ready? We've been ready, he said. She nodded. She went to start dinner. 3 weeks later, across a conference table in Crestfield, Freed laid out the legal strategy to Dennis Call and 2 other executives. Abandonment claim, easement challenge, a procedural filing that would cloud Gerald's title long enough to force a settlement. Call nodded. Do it, he said. A certified letter arrived at Gerald's house on a Tuesday. Meridian Federal Bank, Verge, Gerald E. Marsh. Claim, $62,000. Gerald set it on the kitchen table. He opened the drawer beside the stove. He took out the manila envelope, folded twice, soft at the creases. He did not open it. He already knew what was inside. The phone rang the following morning. Unknown number, out-of-county area code. Gerald looked at the screen. He picked up. Mr. Marsh, Freed said, before Gerald could speak. We're prepared to increase the settlement offer to $310,000. Full release of claims. No further litigation. This is the final number. Gerald looked out the kitchen window. The strip of land ran along the eastern edge of the cornfield exactly as it had in 2001, in 1998, in 1956. Nothing had changed. That was the point. I'll call you back, Gerald said. He hung up. He called Lynn. She drove down that Saturday. She was in her 40s now, with 12 years of real estate law behind her. She had handled easement disputes, title contests, access rights cases. She had never handled her father's. She spread the permit file across the kitchen table. Gerald set the original deed beside it. He set the notebook beside that. Lynn read in silence for a long time. The kettle came on. Carol poured 2 cups and set them on the table and did not say a word. Lynn turned to the last page of the notebook. She looked at the 1956 filing number written in Gerald's handwriting. She looked at the clause he had copied by hand in the library. Perpetuity, she said. That's what it says. She looked at him. Dad, they have no case. I know. The 1956 agreement is a permanent surface access easement. The county never dissolved it. The road expansion approval was never vacated. And you've paid the tax bill on this parcel every single year for 23 years. There is no abandonment. There is no lapse. She tapped the page. Their entire lawsuit falls apart on the tax records alone. She picked up her phone. She called Freed. The hearing was held in the Dunmore County Circuit Courtroom 3 weeks later. Wood paneling, 4 rows of benches, 2 people from the local paper sitting in the back. Gerald sat at the respondent's table. Lynn sat beside him. Freed had 3 attorneys with him. Lynn placed 3 documents on the table. The first was the 1956 Utilities Access Agreement, stamped, certified. Permanent surface rights along the eastern 18 feet of Parcel 14C in perpetuity, regardless of any subsequent change in ownership. The second was the 1961 County Road Expansion Approval, approved by the full County Commission, never formally dissolved, still active on the books after 63 years. The third was a stack of 23 annual tax receipts, paid in full, every year, by Gerald Edward Marsh. The earliest was dated March 2002. The most recent was dated March 2024. The judge looked at the 3 documents. He looked at Freed. Freed looked at his colleagues. Then at the table. Lynn said 4 words. The parcel was never abandoned. The judge ruled in 8 minutes. Meridian's abandonment claim was dismissed. The easement challenge was dismissed. The $62,000 lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. Freed was already reaching for his phone before the gavel landed. Gerald stood on the courthouse steps in the afternoon. Lynn stood beside him. 2 of the men from the 2001 auction had been sitting in the back of the courtroom. Farmers who remembered the basement with the folding tables and the coffee pot. Gerald had seen them come in. He had not acknowledged it. They said nothing to him on the steps. They just nodded. That was enough. Back at the kitchen table, Lynn opened the negotiation. She told Freed that Gerald would not accept a lump sum. Not $310,000, not any number. What Gerald wanted was a permanent easement agreement. Meridian could use the 18-foot corridor for every utility line, every pipe, every cable the development required, for as long as the development stood. In exchange, Gerald would receive a monthly licensing fee of $1,400, adjusted for inflation every 5 years, transferable to his heirs upon his death. Fried said the company would counter. There's nothing to counter, Lynn said. You need that corridor. There is no other route. We both know that. Fried asked for 2 hours. He called back in 90 minutes. Meridian accepted every term. Lynn called Gerald. He was on the porch. They took it, she said. Good, Gerald said. Dad, that's 16 hours season, $800 a year. Indexed. Forever. I know. And they'll have to renegotiate with your heirs if they want to expand. I know. There was a pause. Are you happy? Lynn said. Gerald thought about it. Carol would have liked the monthly checks, he said. Lynn was quiet a moment. Yeah, she said. She would have. The signing was held at the county clerk's office on a Thursday morning. Gerald drove himself. He wore the same barn coat, zipper still broken. He signed his name in 3 places. The clerk stamped the agreement and handed him a copy. He thanked her and walked to his truck. He sat in the cab for a moment. He opened the glove compartment and took out the notebook. Carol's notebook, brown cover, his name in her handwriting on the inside front page. He turned to the last blank page. He wrote 2 lines, April 2024, or 400 month, indexed. She always said the land would take care of us. He put the notebook back. He started the truck. 3 days later, the Dunmore County Register ran a short article on the settlement. 2 paragraphs. No quotes from Meridian. A spokesperson said the company had reached an agreement with a private landowner. Dennis Call did not comment. In the 2-row town of Millbrook, 4 people read the article at the diner on Friday morning. One of them had been at the 2001 auction. He set down his coffee cup and looked at the window for a long moment. He did not say anything. Some men build their whole lives trying to take something. Gerald Marsh paid $300 for 11 acres in 2001, mowed it twice a year for 23 years, and let the land do the rest. Now here's the question. Would you have taken the $310,000 and walked away, or held out for $400 every month, every year, for the rest of your life? Drop your answer below, and if you've made it this far, you already know what Gerald would say.